Good night, Mike.
Hello, everybody. Actually, I can't put on a fake accent or trick you that I was in Australia in the outback with this somewhat appropriate headgear. But I will say welcome to Biology in the Basement Special Edition Fireside Chats, where we now move on to our final unit, Ecology and Human Impacts. So, let's get started with the fact of the day, and that is that scientists predict by 2030 that the remains of the Titanic will have completely disappeared. A species of bacteria called Halomaides titanicum, it has evolved to consume metal, and it will devour the Titanic in the next 10 years. So pretty interesting how species evolve to consume all kinds of resources, even metal. So purpose of today's video is to just walk you through how this unit is going to kind of wrap up for the year. We will spend the last couple days of classes reviewing, but this is the final unit of the course, that is the living environment, which focuses on us living in this environment. So here we go. Ecology. It's the study of the house. Eco means house. And ology, as we've learned, is the study of. Quite different from economics. Usually these two things are at odds with each other, but I assure you they are similar. Eco is the house. Nomics is really just referring to the metrics and measuring how the money, or, measuring the resources moving in and out of the house, whether it's your home, the local, state, uh, federal government. We're going to look at the house as in species that live together and their interactions with each other, whether it is on the small scale or the larger scale. And that's how ecology and economics start the same, but they're much different because we're not measuring numbers. We're just looking at and studying the interactions between living things with each other as well as non-living things. That's very important when we define that term, ecosystem. The ecosystem is the unit of the environment, right? The environment is everything around us, where we live, where we get our resources, where we survive, live, our habitat, so to speak. Our environment is broken up into ecosystems. Ecosystems can be of many sizes, large and small, as large as a forest or as small as a fish tank. Even your stomach qualifies as an ecosystem. And we'll talk about the four components of an ecosystem later. But that's how it is broken up. Now, here are all the terms. They're backwards in the way that I want to explain them. So when you look back at them and do your homework and work on your objectives, you can look at them. But let's talk about how I said we were going to do this year and how we're kind of coming together, right? And bringing this all home. Where first we have atoms made up of protons and neutrons, the smallest things that we looked at, right? We can talk about leptons and hadrons and quarks and all those little things that are even smaller, but right, that's for Mr. Fuller to teach you later. Anyways, we have those atoms that join together to form molecules. Those molecules, right, get bigger. The monomers become polymers. Those polymers form cell parts like organelles. Once we get to organelles, then we start to talk about living things like cells, right? The cell is the basic unit of life. And we talked about that at the beginning of the year. We took a huge digression talking about cell processes, which finished with reproduction. So we used that to talk about genetics and how that results in species evolving and the diversity of life as well as the unity of life that we all share. And now we're back with the human body where we said, okay, remember cells, right? Cells work together to make up tissues and organ systems. Organ systems make up an organism. And that's what an organism is, depending on how simple or complex. Anyways, organisms make up species. Okay, so that's where we're picking up, right? We just finished the human body talking about one species, right? We are an organism in the species of Homo sapiens, right? Well, that is just one species. We make up a population, whether we're talking about the population globally of what, 7, 8, 9 billion, who I don't want to think about, or whether we're talking about the population of humans in Cortland County. We just have to define the species, define the area, okay? But it's always just one species in particular. Sometimes we get discussing the species of white-tailed deer, or the population, I should say, of white-tailed deer, one species, in upstate New York. But that's just one species, one population, the deer in upstate New York, and define the location. But if we wanted to talk about all the species in that area, then we would go to the next level, the community, which sometimes is referred to as the living community. So if we talk about the deer as one population, the community is all the populations, whether it's the deer or the maple and birch trees, whether it's the ferns or the woodchucks and squirrels and bugs and fungus or bacteria that live there, right? That's the whole living community, right? So that's one of the terms that people struggle with, where population is just one species, community, all the species within that defined area. Usually it's the environment or the ecosystem. But it's not quite an ecosystem until we throw in the non-living components. The other terms there were biotic and abiotic factors. The non-living and living components, that's what gives us an ecosystem. And there are usually multiple ecosystems that are near each other, that are in common, and those ecosystems make up a biome. You hopefully learned about the biomes, right? Whether it was the desert or the tundra. North of us, right, is the taiga, the coniferous forest. We live in the deciduous forest. You could be talking about marine biomes and things like that as well. But those are just groups of similar ecosystems that, as it say, share similar precipitation and sunlight. That's usually what the biome is mostly determined by. And then all those biomes collected make up the biosphere. Most of the Earth is inhabitable and is the biosphere. But as we've discussed in years past, there are probably sections of deserts that go for 100 square miles where there's no life, or sections of the tundra where there are hundreds of miles of no life, maybe deep dark oceans. And for some reason everybody wants to talk about volcanoes. Nobody can live in a volcano. And then I just think about, what's the square footage of a volcano compared to the Earth? But anyways, you're right, nothing can live in a volcano. And as Jack Handy said, if you ever drop your keys in molten lava, do not jump in after them, because they're gone, man. They are gone. All right, so that's all we're going to talk about. We're going to pick up with resources tomorrow. So, good day, mates, and we will see you tomorrow talking about resources.